welcome. I'm Mary O'Grady, America's columnist with the Wall Street Journal. In this video, we leave the confines of Europe and its many tutorials about the realities of socialism to explore the small island nation of Singapore. It offers a number of important insights for Western countries. The first lesson from Singapore is the power of prioritizing economic growth and prosperity. Why was this so important?
When Singapore gained its full independence in 1965, it was a relatively poor country. Per person income in Singapore in 1965 was less than 1/3 of the average for all OECD countries, a group of rich industrialized countries, and it was less than 20% of Australia's and the US's per person income.
So it was the country's poverty that drove the focus on economic growth and prosperity, and a desire to improve living standards?
Yes, successive governments in Singapore emphasized the importance of growing the economic pie to raise living standards. This meant from the start that Singapore was committed to being open to and encouraging of investment, trade, and immigration. It also benefited from strong institutions originally established during British rule that included an independent legal and judicial system that recognized and protected property rights, and a government bureaucracy known for its effectiveness and its competence. Singapore was also committed to world-class education. This small island nation has consistently led the world in terms of international performance of its K-12 education system. A 2020 World Bank analysis ranked Singapore first among 174 countries for its education and healthcare systems in terms of contributing to worker productivity.
So it sounds like Singapore got a lot of its economic policies right because it focused on encouraging growth. But what role did the government play in economic development?
Singapore was committed to limiting government spending and ensuring low competitive taxes to retain domestic investment and attract international investment, as well as skilled labor, professionals, and entrepreneurs. In 2000, Singapore's government spending represented about 16% of its entire economy. The average for the OECD, a group of the world's wealthiest countries in 2000, was almost 39%. And consider how it compared to Canada and the United States, Australia, and the United Kingdom. Singapore has a smaller government sector by far compared to these Western countries.
Smaller government usually means lower taxes. Is this the case of Singapore?
Yes. Across all major categories of taxes, Singapore enjoys low internationally competitive taxes. Consider its personal income taxes as an example. The top rate of 22% is one of the lowest in the world, and it is especially low when compared with other industrialized countries, such as Canada, the United States, Australia, and the United Kingdom. It also has low business taxes and a comparatively low sales tax. As you noted, the lower level of government spending is consistent with Singapore's low taxes.
But the Singaporean government owns a number of businesses. This seems to run contrary to the idea of a small government state.
Yes, that's an important caveat to Singapore's generally small government approach to economic policy. However, unlike many other countries, including Canada, the United States, Australia, and the United Kingdom, Singapore's government-owned businesses are run as commercial entities with no special treatment, no subsidies.
One way we've analyzed the economic policies of other countries is by using the Fraser Institute's Economic Freedom of the World. How does Singapore fare in economic freedom?
Economic freedom measures the degree to which individuals, workers, entrepreneurs, business owners, and investors make economic decisions instead of politicians and bureaucrats. Singapore's success in terms of creating and maintaining an open economic system is illustrated by its performance on the annual global measure of economic freedom. From the get-go, Singapore was among the top 20 most economically free countries in the world. They reached the top 10 by 1980 and were in second position by 2005, behind only Hong Kong. By 2021, Singapore was the freest country in the world.
Singapore was committed to limiting government and maximizing the role of entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and workers in the economy. But what were the results? Did it succeed in growing the economic pie?
It's hard to overstate the incredible economic success of Singapore. In 1993, Singapore's per-person income had reached the level of the average of OECD countries. Indeed, by 2020, Singapore's per-person income exceeded that of Canada, the United States, Australia, and the United Kingdom. And the success of Singapore extends beyond just income levels. Consider that Singapore's life expectancy in 1965 was 1.1 years less than the OECD average. By 1980, Singapore's life expectancy was the same as the OECD average, and by 2019, it was more than 3 years longer than the OECD average. In 2019, Singapore's life expectancy exceeded that of Canada, the United States, Australia, and the United Kingdom.
Singapore's policies encouraged economic growth, and the results are stunning. But there's another lesson from Singapore. I'm interested in exploring how it finances and delivers social programs compared to Western countries. My understanding is that it takes a very different approach.
Yes, most Western countries impose taxes and then use the money from those taxes to finance and, in many cases, directly provide retirement income, healthcare, education, and other programs like unemployment insurance. A number of countries, however, use a different model with respect to retirement income. Instead of imposing a tax and then having the government provide retirement income, some countries, including Australia, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Switzerland, require workers to save for their own retirement in private accounts. This model of empowering people through private accounts is relied on much more extensively in Singapore than in any other country. Private accounts are used to finance everything from retirement to healthcare to housing to employment insurance to university tuition. And for workers with lower income, the Singaporean government provides supplement into their private accounts.
So how do these accounts actually work?
Instead of paying taxes to the government, workers under 55 in Singapore, for example, pay 37% of their earnings split between the employee and the employer into private accounts. The money in these accounts and the investment income earned over time are then used to pay for a person's retirement, to help them save for a down payment on a home, pay for health insurance and certain medical expenses, provide income during periods of unemployment, and help pay tuition. And unlike government programs, any remaining funds in these accounts can be passed on to children or charities when the parent passes away.
Can you help viewers understand why Singapore took such a radically different approach to retirement income and access to social services?
It's important to understand that when Singapore originally designed these programs, they wanted to ensure individual self-reliance rather than dependence on the government of the day, and they wanted to ensure that economic incentives were aligned with economic growth.
Singapore has lots of lessons for Western countries, but to what extent can the policies of this tiny Asian nation, which is not a democracy, be whole cloth replicated in the West?
I think there's an important distinction between learning from another country's success and trying to completely replicate that country's institutions and policies. Singapore obviously has a unique history, unique culture, and as you said, it's not a democracy. However, at the same time, its incredible success in raising its living standards by focusing on government goals and policies on economic growth, coupled with its unique system of mandatory savings accounts, which empower individuals rather than making them dependent on government, has delivered widespread prosperity and success. This is a governance model that many Western countries could learn and benefit from.